So, let me paint a picture for you. 5 years ago, you were making $42,000 a year, living in some cramped apartment, driving that beat-up Honda Civic. And you remember sitting there thinking, man, if I could just hit 70,000, I'd be good. I'd finally breathe. Fast forward to now. You grinded. You took the promotions, worked the overtime, landed that better gig. You're pulling in $78,000 annually. Damn near double what you used to make. Nicer place, newer car, eating out whenever the hell you want. And yet, here you are, scrolling through YouTube videos about why you're still broke, feeling the exact same anxiety you had at 42,000. Actually, if we're being real, you probably feel worse now, more stressed. And the most insane part, you're already thinking it. If I could just crack 100,000, then I'd feel comfortable. You hear yourself right. Croc and I spend way too much time figuring out why money never feels like enough. If you keep hitting these income targets, only to end up emotionally right back where you started. If your bank account says success, but your gut says otherwise, hit that subscribe button and smash the like. If this resonates, here is what nobody tells you. What you're experiencing isn't your fault. You're not terrible with money. You're not some ungrateful bastard. And you definitely don't need to grind even harder for even more cash. What you're experiencing is one of the most documented psychological traps in human history. It's got a name, the Hedonic Treadmill. Once you understand how this invisible machine operates, you'll finally get why you've been sprinting toward happiness without ever actually arriving. More importantly, you'll learn how to get the hell off. The hedonic treadmill, sometimes called hedonic adaptation, is a concept psychologists have studied since the 1970s, when researchers Philip Brickman and Donald Campbell first named it. The premise is brutally simple. Humans have this remarkable ability to adapt to both positive and negative changes, eventually returning to a relatively stable happiness baseline. Win the lottery. You'll be ecstatic for a while, then return to baseline. Get paralyzed in an accident. You'll be devastated for a while, then return to something close to that same baseline. This isn't theory. This is decades of research. A famous 1978 study found that lottery winners were not significantly happier than control groups just 1 year after winning. In some cases, they enjoyed simple pleasures less than before winning. Think about that. People who won life-changing money ended up enjoying everyday moments less than people who won nothing. That's not a poverty problem. That's a brain problem. And your brain is running this same program on every single raise, every promotion, every financial upgrade. The adaptation window varies, but research suggests that for most positive financial changes, you're looking at 3 to 6 months before your brain recalibrates and that new income feels normal. That 60,000 salary, that felt incredible in January. By July, it's just your salary. The car that made you feel successful when you drove it off the lot. Give it 8 months and it's just your car. Your brain isn't designed to stay impressed. It's designed to adapt and crave more. Let me hit you with some numbers, because this is where it gets disturbing. A 2010 study by Daniel Kahneman and Angus Deaton analyzed over 450,000 responses and found that emotional well-being rises with income, but only to about 75,000 per year. After that threshold, making more money had no measurable impact on day-to-day happiness. Now you're thinking, Croc, that study is old. 75,000 doesn't go as far anymore. You're right, adjusted for inflation. That number today is somewhere around 95 to 100,000. But here is the kicker. A more recent 2021 study by Matthew Killingsworth at Wharton found that happiness does continue to rise with income past that threshold, but at a significantly diminished rate. What does that mean? In real terms, if moving from 50,000 to 100,000 brings you 20 units of increased happiness, moving from 100,000 to 200,000 might only bring you 5 or 6 additional units. You doubled your income, probably more than doubled your stress, definitely doubled your working hours, and you got a quarter of the emotional return. This is diminishing marginal utility applied to your entire existence, and yet nobody mentions this when they're preaching hustle culture and stacking paper. The financial advice machine has a vested interest in keeping you on that treadmill, running faster, because if you ever stopped and realized the destination doesn't exist, you might stop consuming their bullshit too. Now, let me show you how this plays out. In actual dollars, abstract psychology is one thing, but watching your real money evaporate is another. Say you're 30 years old, making 60,000. After taxes, in an average state, you're taking home maybe 47,000, which is about 3,900 a month. Your essential expenses, rent, utilities, basic food, transportation, insurance, come out to around 2,400. That leaves you with 1,500 of discretionary income. Tight but manageable, you get promoted. Now you're making 80,000. After taxes, you're taking home roughly 62,000, about 5,200 a month. But here's what happens. You move to a nicer apartment because you deserve it, adding 500 to your rent. You upgrade your car because the monthly payment is only 150 more. You start eating out more frequently because you're busy and successful, adding maybe 300 to your food budget. You subscribe to more services, nicer work clothes. Maybe pick up a gym membership you barely use. Suddenly, your essential and quasi-essential expenses have ballooned to 3,800. Your discretionary income, 1,400. That's actually less than before your raise. You made 20,000 more per year and somehow have less breathing room. This is lifestyle inflation, and it's the physical manifestation of the hedonic treadmill in your bank account. Here's what really gets me. According to a 2023 report, 52% of Americans making between 100,000 and 150,000 per year describe themselves as living paycheck to paycheck. Read that again. People making over 6 figures, putting them in roughly the top 20% of household incomes, are financially stressed on a monthly basis. A 2022 survey found that 36% of people making over 200,000 also identify as paycheck to paycheck. At a certain point, you have to stop blaming the economy and start examining the psychology. These aren't people who can't afford their lives. These are people whose lives have expanded to consume whatever resources are available. They're running on the treadmill at maximum speed, convinced they're almost there, just a few more raises away from peace. But the treadmill doesn't have a finish line. That's the whole damn point. Now you're thinking, okay, Croc, I get it. The treadmill is garbage. But am I supposed to never want more, never improve my life, live like some ascetic monk? No, and this is where the conversation gets nuanced in a way most financial content completely misses. The goal isn't to eliminate desire. The goal is to want things intentionally rather than automatically. There's a massive difference between upgrading your home because you genuinely value space, privacy, and hosting friends versus upgrading your home because that's just what people do when they make more money. The first is conscious, spending aligned with your values. The second is unconscious adaptation to external expectations. The hedonic treadmill runs on autopilot. It assumes more is better that upgrades equal happiness, that your current self will be satisfied by the thing your past self was chasing. But that's a lie. Your current self has already adapted to what you have. It wants the next thing now, and your future self will adapt too. You can't win this game by playing harder. You can only win by changing the rules. Researchers have consistently found that experiential purchases, things like travel, concerts, learning new skills, spending time with people you love, provide more lasting happiness than material purchases. There are a few reasons. First, experiences are harder to adapt to because they exist as memories rather than physical objects. You can't get used to a memory the way you get used to a couch. Second, experiences often involve social connection, which is one of the strongest predictors of well-being. Third, experiences become part of your identity. In a way, possessions don't. You are your adventures, your stories, your challenges overcome. You are not your car or your watch or your square footage. A 2014 study found that waiting for an experience generates more happiness than waiting for a material purchase, and the positive emotions from experiences last longer after the fact. Here is the financial twist. Experiences are often cheaper than the material upgrades people make instead. A weekend camping trip with friends might cost $200. The SUV you bought partly to justify those camping trips you rarely take cost $40,000. A cooking class costs maybe $100 and provides genuine skill and enjoyment. The kitchen renovation you did because your kitchen wasn't nice enough cost $15,000 and you stopped noticing it after 3 months. We're systematically overspending on things that provide less happiness and underspending on things that provide more. This isn't just bad psychology, it's bad math. There's another way off the treadmill almost nobody talks about, and it's counterintuitive as hell. It's called the arrival fallacy. The arrival fallacy is the illusion that once you arrive at a certain destination, you'll be happy. Once you hit 6 figures, once you pay off the house, once you hit $1 million in net worth, once you can retire. The fallacy isn't that those things don't matter or won't improve your life. The fallacy is that happiness exists at the destination rather than in the journey. Here's what the research shows. People are happiest when they're making progress toward meaningful goals, not when they've achieved them. The anticipation of a vacation provides more happiness than the vacation itself. The process of building a business provides more satisfaction than cashing out. Training for a marathon is more fulfilling than finishing it. This means if you're postponing your happiness, waiting until you arrive financially to feel good about your life, you're making a catastrophic error. You're sacrificing the journey, which is where happiness lives, for an arrival that will feel hollow when you get there. I've talked to people who spent 20 years grinding toward financial independence, hit their number, and immediately felt lost. They adapted. The goal that sustained them was gone. The happiness they expected didn't materialize, and they realized too late that they traded their 30s and 40s for a promise their brain was never going to keep. So, what do you actually do with this information? How do you step off the treadmill without giving up on financial success? Let me give you something practical. First step is to create what I call a lifestyle anchor. This is a commitment you make to yourself about how much of your future raises you'll allow to flow into lifestyle upgrades versus investments. For most people, I recommend somewhere between 70/30 to 50/50 split, with a higher percentage going toward investing. So, if you get a 10,000 raise, 3,000 can flow into lifestyle improvements, and 7,000 go straight into investments. This serves two purposes. First, it prevents the automatic lifestyle inflation that keeps you on the treadmill. Second, the lifestyle improvements you do make feel more intentional and therefore more satisfying because you're choosing them consciously rather than drifting into them. The key is to set this rule when you're thinking clearly, not in the moment. When you're excited about a raise and already mentally spending it. Second step is to practice negative visualization, which sounds depressing, but is actually liberating. Stoic philosophers have been doing this for 2,000 years. The idea is to regularly imagine losing the things you currently have. Your apartment, your job, your car, your relationships. Not to make yourself miserable, but to break the adaptation that makes you take these things for granted. Studies show this practice actually increases gratitude and appreciation for current circumstances without requiring any external change. You don't need to make more money to feel richer. You need to stop adapting to what you already have. Try this once a week. Take 10 minutes to vividly imagine your life if you suddenly lost your job and had to go back to whatever you were earning 5 years ago. Feel the anxiety, then open your eyes and realize you still have what you have. That gap between imagined loss and current reality is where gratitude lives. And gratitude is one of the only known antidotes to hedonic adaptation. Third step is to optimize for time, not money. This is where people get it completely backwards. They sacrifice time to earn money, then use that money to buy conveniences that save small amounts of time, never realizing the trade is deeply unfavorable. A 2017 study found that people who spent money on time-saving purchases reported greater life satisfaction than those who spent on material goods. But here is the key insight. The ultimate time-saving purchase is having enough money that you don't need to work for more. Every dollar you invest instead of spending is a dollar that eventually works for you. Buying back hours of your life at a 4% safe withdrawal rate. Every $25 you invest buys you $1 of permanent annual passive income. Do that for 10 years while your investments compound, and you've bought yourself a part-time job's worth of income that you never have to work for. You're stepping off the treadmill, not by killing your ambition, but by redirecting it. Instead of running faster to buy more stuff, you're running to buy your time back. That's a race that actually has a finish line. Look, I want to leave you with this. The hedonic treadmill isn't evil. It's actually a survival mechanism that helped our ancestors stay motivated in a world of genuine scarcity. The problem is, we're now running ancient software in a world of artificial abundance, surrounded by advertising designed to exploit our vulnerabilities. Every billboard, every commercial, every Instagram AD is trying to convince you that you're not quite there yet. That happiness is one purchase away, and your brain, with its tendency to adapt to everything good that's ever happened to you, makes this message feel true, even when you know intellectually that it's not. You're not broken for feeling this way. You're human. But being human also means you have the capacity to recognize your programming and choose differently. You can decide that enough is a number, not a feeling. You can track your lifestyle creep and consciously resist it. You can invest in experiences over things, in time over money, in progress over arrival. You can step off the treadmill, not because you've given up on success, but because you've realized success was never waiting at the end of an endless run. It was in learning how to walk away from a race that was never designed to be won. If this video helped you see your finances differently. Smash that like button and subscribe for more content that actually challenges how you think about money. I'll see you in the next one.